it's Nancy Jane Smith from Live Happier, and I am here with another Live Happier Q&A. And today is actually going to be a little different. We're actually doing a part 2 from last week. So Beth actually wrote back in, because last week I did the video on dealing with anxiety with my kids, and that was a question from Beth. So Beth says, thanks for the help with my kids. Do you have any tips for dealing with my own anxiety? So I wanted to push, Beth's question up to the front of the pile, because I thought it would be helpful to do it, a part 2 right after I did the one with kids' anxiety, because dealing with our own anxiety is a little more complex. So like I said last week, this is just a brief introduction into dealing with anxiety, which is a lifelong process and something that we get better at the more we practice. So this is not the be-all end-all, just a great way for you to get introduced into dealing with your anxiety in healthy ways. So the first thing I want to talk about when we start feeling anxious is to notice that we're feeling anxious. And so often what anxiety does by its nature is to push us further from ourselves. So when we start feeling anxious, we immediately start disconnecting from ourselves. And we start getting in our heads, and we start thinking about our to-dos, and we just kind of are freaking out. And so the trick to anxiety is to bring yourself back. And that's why 3 deep breaths is such a common method, or dancing, because it gets you back in your body. It gets you back aware of yourself. So the first thing I want you to do when you're feeling anxious is to notice it. Just being aware that you're feeling anxious. A great example of anxiety and how I deal with it was a couple weeks ago. I was having a procedure done. And it was a Friday morning, and I was going to have the procedure done later that day. And I woke up in the morning and I was feeling anxious. And my stomach was upset, and my chest was hurting, and I felt a little nauseous. And I remember sitting, getting my coffee ready, and I was like, oh, I feel anxious. I could just feel it. And my next thought was, well, you shouldn't be feeling anxious. I mean, this is a common procedure, and people have it done all the time, so what's your problem? And that is the problem sometimes when we start noticing. We start then judging the anxiety and telling ourselves that we're wrong for feeling that way. So I want to make sure as you're noticing it, that you're noticing it without judgment. And so immediately when I found myself being so judgmental, I said to myself, hey, just because this procedure happens all the time, it doesn't mean it happens to you all the time. For me, was a brand new procedure, and I was really scared about it. I was feeling a lot of anxiety. So I was able to notice that anxiety, non-judgmentally. And then the last thing I want to talk to you about is being curious about the anxiety. What is it that you're anxious about? And then, can you control it, that thing that you're anxious about, or can you not control it? And most of the time, the answer is going to be, I can't control it, which is why you're feeling anxious. So for example, I'm headed into this procedure, I'm feeling anxious, I check in with myself, what am I anxious about? I'm anxious that it might hurt, I'm anxious of what the results are going to be, I'm anxious of the unknown, I don't know what's going to happen. There's a lot of unexpected things that could go wrong. There's a lot of unexpected news. It's going to a new doctor's office. It's a bunch of stuff that's out of my control. So because I'm clear on the things I'm feeling anxious about, and I'm non-judgmentally looking at them, I'm being really curious, I can then say, what can I do to implement so I'm not feeling that anxiety when I walk into the office? So I can ask my nearest and dearest to go with me to the doctor's office so I feel better. I can reach out to friends, and I ask them to know that I was having this, to be thinking of me, and then I would email them all when I was done. So I had something, when I was sitting there at the doctor's office, I knew everyone was kind of cheering for me as I was going through this procedure. I talked to a really good friend of mine right before the procedure, so I had that to check in with. So I had things set up. I talked to the doctor and the nurse about the level of pain, and I got all my questions answered before we even started the procedure. So because I was conscious of the anxiety, I worked with it instead of running against it. And that's what happens so often is we feel anxiety. We're sitting in the car, we're feeling really anxious about getting our to-do list done, and we just go out of ourselves. But if we can stop and be like, okay, I'm feeling anxious, what can I do about that right now? Well, pretty much nothing. You're stuck in traffic. So that's when you can start disconnecting. Okay, I can't deal with that, but maybe I can brainstorm some ideas for how to solve the problem that I need to work on for work, and I can record them into my phone. So you can start coming up with practical ways to deal with the anxiety instead of letting the anxiety run you out of control. I hope that helps answer your question, Beth. Like I said, very beginning, basic stuff we're talking here. on my journey and how it's helped me learn how to live happier. So I hope this helps you deal with your own anxiety. And I would love for the rest of you to send me your comments or send me an email, whatever works for you, because I would love to hear from you what has worked for you in the past. And if you have a Live Happier question, just drop it in the form or send me an email and I can answer it here on Live Happier Q&A. Thanks, take care, bye.